Andrea Tessman, I have a question for you.
Oh, what is that?
What were you doing on June 20th, 1981?
Probably drooling and crapping my diapers, to be honest.
Let me tell you what the United States was doing while you were taking a dump. Sorry for the poor visuals, but you've known me a few years. I don't stay classy in San Diego.
Well, yeah.
In the United States, baseball wasn't on. They were on strike. A precursor of what would happen many moons after. If you were going to the movies, chances are it was Superman 2, which just came out. Proof that you didn't have to be a good actor to be a superhero. Hey, back then, Christopher Reeve, come on. I mean, great advocate for what he became after, and like awesome man, but shitty actor.
This is true.
Also, Lois Lane, Margot Kidder proved that you didn't have to be attractive to be a hero's muse.
Oh, come on, that's subjective.
Okay, well, my subjective says this, and just for those who have never seen what I look like, I'm a fat Ricky Schroeder.
That's a great description.
Yeah, and he jumped on that a little too fast, but yes, that is sort of true. He would be playing the... If the Buck would be a motion picture, he'd probably be the first one cast. As much as I would love for it to be Paul Rudd, it wouldn't be.
All right, so back to 1981.
Oh, yes. In Montreal, this was the one-day anniversary of Celine Dion's first appearance on television, local TV, where she sang a French song, which I believe loosely translated it into, for the next 40 years, I'm going to put out crap.
But I have a good voice while I'm doing it.
That she does. I can never insult the voice of Celine Dion.
Just the persona.
Just the persona and just all the melodramatic crap that comes out of it. But if you were listening to music on the radio, a weird song came out that is either ahead of its time, behind its time. It just doesn't age well. And you picked it.
I did.
You did. And this is the great thing, I think, for episode 1 of the series we'll call, How the Hell Did That Get to Number 1? And it's Stars on 45 by Stars on 45.
By Stars on 45.
Yes. Now, I was thinking about this. Like when we decided this, I went back to listen to the song, and I'm pretty sure, and obviously I can't prove this, but I would imagine that I don't think I've heard the song for 30 years. Because once it was a hit, you never heard it again.
No, I know I've heard it, but then also you hear all the random components of it all the time because, I mean, Beatles. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I don't know when the last time I've, if ever really heard it in its entirety.
I don't think it's one of those songs that just sort of goes away. It's perfect for that one moment. I don't think it could have ever become a hit in any other time period than this pocket. So,
super interesting fact about how it became a hit is it's actually a legal bootleg of an illegal bootleg. So I don't know if you came across it.
I did.
But it was this Dutch guy was in a record store, and he happened to hear a disco medley of a bunch of Beatles songs, and then a song came up, I can't remember which one right now, that he actually owned the international rights to. And he was like, what the fuck is this? I'm not getting any money for this. So I think it was 79, and so he started looking into it and figuring out what was going on that was including his music that he wasn't getting royalties for. And it was produced by a bogus publisher. Like, it was just, there was no ties to it. And it turns out it's actually Canadian DJs put this thing out.
Why do you think I mentioned Celine Dion? Seriously, I was going somewhere with this. But yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was trying to look up. So then you obviously because we both said we were going to do our independent research and just sort of freestyle. Because so if you think this is a slickly produced show, it's as slickly produced as the actual song that we're talking about.
Oh well, so these two Canadian DJs, they came out with this rip off, basically just beat matching, and came up with this record that they then bootlegged and sent out across the world. And then this guy was like, "Oh hell no, I don't. I'm gonna cash in on the success of this bootleg record." And he literally created a legal version of it, and it got to number one.
Yeah, and I think just before that, just the choices though that these pair of Michelles, because it's a guy named Michelle Ali, and I'm blanking on the other guy, Michelle Ali. Because it's a weird story. Because every time I keep going through it, Andrea, it's like different versions. So I'm trying to like put it together. I feel like did you watch I, Tanya? And it's like they came up like the opening edit said, "This is the best story we can come up from the versions that we've heard." And that's kind of what I feel with this, because apparently this guy Michelle Ali shows up at
Michelle is G something Gondro.
Yes.
Something.
Yeah, it's Gendro. But he was Ali goes to this one club where Michel Gendro was like the lead DJ of a club, and apparently he was like the big guy, and it made me sort of think of WKRP, like these eras where your local DJ meant something.
Yep.
I mean, like when you and I were sort of like drinking in the backyard, I mean, like we couldn't really pick up any radio because we were in the boonies. Literally.
Yeah, exactly.
But if we were to listen to local radio, which we wouldn't have because who does, it would have been Edmonton. And even then, I don't.
Oh, no. There was the Eagle that we played at work until I was like, I cannot stand this BS pop music station of like playing everything from the past 50 years, but picking one obscure song that was popular and playing it constantly for months on end.
Then they went all country.
How many times does someone have to listen to Peaches?
So that was the music of the accounting station, was it?
It was.
Because accountants
that was
like
my
Peaches.
local radio in Jasper. It was, I think, a Hinton station, and it was terrible.
And yes, again, for reference here, it's two Canadians dissecting American pop culture because, well, we thought of it.
Because why not? I mean,
why not?
So far in our shows here, we've talked about Canadian DJs and the Dutch producers. So I think we're pretty good.
Yeah. So from what I can tell, the story goes that the DJ wouldn't want to play it until they could make it sound better. So whether he actually had something to do with it directly or not, because depending on what I read, he either does or doesn't. What we can figure out for sure is that he's the one who sort of put it out in the Montreal clubs. And the amazing thing is the track listing didn't change when they sort of got heard from the gentleman in the Netherlands you were talking about. And the song in question actually has another bit of history. We might even talk about that. Because the song that he owned was Venus by Shocking Blue.
That's right.
The first Dutch song to go number one in the United States. Bam! I was really proud of myself for tying all that stuff in. I had no follow-up.
And still an earworm to this day.
Yeah. Like I never even heard that initially. Like I heard Bananarama's version first. Like, what do you mean that's a cover? I had no idea. Didn't know. So the guy who sort of came across it, what's his name? I'm probably saying it wrong. Jaap Egermont. Jaap Egermont. And I don't understand the whole country of Netherlands. I was sort of thinking before we went on. The Netherlands has to be a country that everyone knows, but nobody knows anything about.
I know they have clogs and excellent cheese and very flat landscape.
Which might explain why, with all the dikes and the rivers they have, like why they kick ass at long track speed skating.
That would make sense. They also have some beautiful tulips.
They also have what?
Beautiful tulips.
That they do.
I think it's their number one export.
I would have thought that would have been pot, but I guess there's not much point anymore. You can get that anywhere now.
That's because you're Canadian.
Well, yeah, I was just a beer drinker in Hellraiser. That's, well, not much of a Hellraiser anymore, but that's another story for another time. And even then, I wasn't much of a Hellraiser. But always a beer drinker.
Yes, you were.
Yes. Well, although it's sober September. Boo. But we'll see how long this goes. So this
It's only the first. You got a long ways to go.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So Yop's an interesting character. So he would have been in his mid-30s when he sort of came across this. And he was a drummer at first, and then he left a band that became actually a relatively famous Dutch band, Golden Earring.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I hadn't come across that.
Yeah, but so he was a drummer for them, but before they had their big hit Radar Love. So I just sort of imagine him just sort of upset, when his buddies made it and he's just producing low-level Dutch bands, just anything he can get his hands on. Nothing, which wasn't too much. I don't know, I just picture him sort of there because I found pictures of him and he's got this giant mustache, sort of a curly mullet going on. He would have been 35, but he looks 45. Just one of those artsy people that we know that just haven't let things go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As was the style in the 70s to early 80s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so he just took this and made it slicker. Didn't change the order. And for this, I should just sort of point out, because there was a long track version and a short track version. He duplicated the long track. And one thing that sort of stayed the same as 1981, 1991, 2001, 1971, doesn't matter. A 16-minute song's not going to get record play.
No.
It's just not. So he kept...
No, I mean, look at Bohemian Rhapsody. That's about as long as you can get and actually get some radio traction.
Well,
and even that, they weren't going to play it on the radio at first.
Did you see Bohemian? You saw the movie?
I did.
I would have been the Mike Myers character, because... I would have been, because there's no way, gentlemen, that this... And a terrible impression, I know. No way that this would be a hit. And because I would have thought that. It broke every rule. It makes no sense that this song is a hit. And it is. Which kind of ties into this. How is this a hit?
So, I mean, I gotta say, every Beatles song really fits well with that 120 BPM disco sound. None of them sound like disco, but they all fit that same tempo, and it's easy to throw that clap track behind anything to create a disco sound. So I gotta say, as far as mixing goes, this is pretty lazy. But then I also have to admit that the technology in 1980 was very different from our DJ technology these days, and it's not like they were playing around with Ableton to get their beats. So, we're talking about a different generation and a different technology, but I can see how easy it would be to put together a fun, boppy dance sort of compilation of Beatles music. It's, as I said, it's almost lazy.
It's lazy and brilliant at the same time.
Oh, for sure, as so much great music is. Maybe not great. So much, let's say, popular music.
But that's sort of the funny thing. I mean, why do coloring books sell? I mean, here, you do all the work.
Yeah, exactly.
It just...
They'll put some lines on a page and you do the work.
Yeah. Why is Goofy red all of a sudden? Well, he is. That's how it works. However you wanted to do it. So when they sort of chose it or decided on the shorter version medley, so they kept Venus because they owned it. Bled into Sugar Sugar, and this is where I think And I guess we'll have to sort of give the credit to Ali and Jean-Ro. Apologies if I'm getting his name wrong. But the two Québécois. Because they picked the Beatles songs, No Reply, I'll Be Back, Drive My Car, Do You Want to Know a Secret, We Can Work It Out, I Should Have Known Better, Nowhere Man, You're Gonna Lose That Girl. All not major hits. None of them. And the reason why I say that is, if you hear, I don't know, Let It Be, or Yesterday in This, I mean, granted they're ballads and they wouldn't work, but those are songs you automatically want to like hear them on their own. You're not going to like stop what you're doing and just say, no, I need to hear the real version as much as you would with this collection.
And I mean, I kind of don't agree with you entirely. Like, Nowhere Man, I think was, maybe it's just what I've listened to of the Beatles, but We Can Work It Out, Nowhere Man are like, quickly pop into my head. Have to think a little bit more about Do You Want to Know a Secret? I Should Have Known Better, and honestly, I had to look up You're Gonna Lose That Girl. But then, a lot of those ones are also that generically all kind of sound the same. Like, I love the Beatles, but they were prolific, and maybe they shouldn't have been quite so prolific because, especially a lot of their mid-years stuff, really, it's all the same key, it's all the same time register, it's just that 120 BPM, you know, he's a real nowhere man. Do you want to know a secret?
Did you add a little Liverpoolian accent there? I think you did.
I don't know. Who knows what I do when I sing badly. But it really, they all tie together. And as you said, they're not the big hits. They're not the showstoppers of like, oh yeah, you hear some Beatles songs and you think you play the whole song out in your head. None of these are quite there. They're just, you know, catchphrases and riffs.
And a couple of these I don't think were even major hits. I don't think No Reply did particularly well.
I don't think so either. I mean, Baby You Can Drive My Car. Yes, I'm going to be a star. Baby You Can Drive My Car. And Baby I Love You. Like, come on. You're just dialing in the lyrics there. Driving in the lyrics? I don't know.
Ooh. I like that. I like that.
But there's a lot of that era Beatles that is just lazy. This worked for the last song, so I bet we can put some new lazy lyrics to it and keep going. And if anybody ever listens to this, I'm probably going to get ripped a new one for hating on the Beatles, but I'm not hating on the Beatles.
Oh.
I'm just, you know, expressing that some of their work is lazy.
I'll put it this way, Andrea. On the last show I did, somehow I went from racial tension in sports to Punky Brewster's boobs. And I did that in a 60-minute period. So I wouldn't worry about you getting any letters. It's probably all coming to me.
Well, glad that we cleared that one up.
Yeah. So with Yop, he came out, he knew he had something, or at least he thought he did. I mean, I'm sure he had a lot of, this is going to work moments. Oh, it didn't. This is going to work. Oh, it didn't. But he knew enough about copyright that you couldn't just take what they did, because they used the actual Beatles music.
Yeah. Well, and for those who don't understand copyright, there's generally two copyrights on every song. There is the composer copyright, and there are the performer copyrights. And if you use an original track, you are likely going to have to pay both, whereas sometimes you can get away with not using the original track. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, but so that's where he came up with 4 people who took over the sound-alikes. Honestly, I had to look it up again to make sure it wasn't them. Because it's
Oh, it sounds, they really do sound like them.
Yeah, so let's see. I had this all written down. Of course, I'm not as prepared. So a guy named Hans, you know my brother's named Hans?
I did not know that.
Yeah, thank God I wasn't named Franz.
Captain Kirk's good.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm named after. Sad but true. So who did it get? Okay, so a guy named actually Hans Vermeulen doing the voice of of John Lennon. Guy named Oki. I wanted to say Okie Kadoki, but it's not. Oki Huysdens as Paul McCartney. Baz Moyes from a small band that he was producing called Smile doing John Lennon, and he didn't have to worry about getting anyone for Ringo.
Nobody worries about Ringo.
No.
Maybe Marge Simpson. But beyond that, nobody is concerned about Ringo.
Very nice reference. I hung it on me wall. Nice.
And this is why we get along so well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wonder how many people right now are sort of Googling Marge Simpson and Ringo Starr right now. But allow me to segue. Ringo had the best life of all the Beatles.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, talented enough that he can hang with those three, didn't take himself seriously, and he was the only rock star who said, you know what, I can really date out of my league. Paul McCartney said, hey, one leg, hey, hop on in.
I don't think he's the only pop rock star to ever date outside of his league. Like, come on. Have you seen Steven Tyler?
He was the only Beatle who did.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
I mean, like, that in itself, I mean, like, he was the precursor there. I mean, Rick Ocasek sort of looked at Ringo and said, like, yep, this is why I want to be a rock star. I mean, look at Ringo. And Ringo's still alive. He's still happy, and he still looks fantastic.
Yeah, he looks pretty much the same.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if he's had any work done on his hair, but he still has all of it. If it's plugs, it sure doesn't look like it. The man has no stress.
So anyway, back to the Stars on 45.
Okay, yeah, well, that's why you're here to rein me in.
Well, yeah, I try.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of work. So they came up with that, and why I think it's sort of this perfect time frame for this to come out, I think we were talking about the DJs. So DJs, how many DJs, I'm sure they've heard compilations before, but how many were sort of like playing like on the radio station? This is back when radio had power. Radio could make a song go number one. It can't now, but it could then.
Mm-hmm.
So how many of these DJs thought, like, shit, why didn't I think of that?
That's a very good point, because you're right. Radio at the time was the primary distribution method for music.
Mm-hmm.
It was the easy way to access as many masses as possible. You could play clubs, but you're only getting a certain subsect. You could, well, actually beyond that, there's not a lot of other ways at the time.
No, there really wasn't. MTV was 6 weeks away. It hadn't happened yet.
Yeah. Yeah. When MTV was actually about music.
Ugh.
Those were the days.
They were. Of course, we had Much Music, the lazy brother.
Yeah, but Much Music had some good stuff. Come on, what about Pop-Up Video?
Pop-Up Video, wasn't that a VH1 thing?
Was it VH1? I thought it was Much Music. I don't know.
You know, because we take everything from the States. Not everything. That's not true. But we'll get into that at another time. It will definitely come up, because this is a Canadian view of an American perspective. Canadian view of an American perspective, does that make sense? Well, it does so, because it's my show.
Sure. Why not?
And so, like, I go back to the time frame. So, like, when they sort of had that opening riff that they created, you can disco, you can boogie. I might have that backwards, but you're mentioning two words, boogie and disco, that were taboo almost immediately. Because disco died almost at the end of '79, and they say that Funky Town was the last true number one hit from the disco genre, which happened in 1980. I argue that it's this song, because it tapped into a lot of people who still didn't want disco to die, and you went back further, tapping into a whole Beatles nostalgia. John Lennon was only dead for 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's totally tapping into that nostalgia factor.
Right, so it's like immediate nostalgia, and you didn't have to worry about Yoko Ono making any of the money. And it was, again, before MTV, because there was no video for this. So it wouldn't have that to sort of propel it. So it was only on top for 1 week. Before it was Kim Carnes, Betty Davis Eyes. Before that, it was Kim Carnes, Betty Davis Eyes. I don't ever want to cover Kim Carnes. I hope we don't. I don't know what the hell I'd really talk about with her. I don't know. She's just there.
Yeah, that song is pretty much just there.
I remember as a kid, like, she's got Betty Davis eyes, and finding out what Betty Davis looked like. Okay, is this a compliment? Is it? I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it meant bedroom eyes, but I'm not entirely positive.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I'm definitely not the person to really discuss.
No, we're not talking about Betty Davis eyes.
No, we're not. So this became a hit. And so what do you do? What do you do when you come up with the formula?
You mass produce it until nobody wants to hear it anymore.
Yes.
I mean,
I teed up that softball because I knew you'd hit it out of the park.
But that's the truth. I mean, you look at any good craze, they just overdo it to the point that you just want to poke your eyeballs or eardrums out.
And I don't blame Egremont for doing this. I mean, what else is he going to do? He's got something that's going to work. I think he's smart enough to know that this wasn't going to stick. But if he's going to make some extra money on it, do it.
Yeah. Hey, I think it's brilliant. Honestly, I think it's cheesy as hell. But I think that it's a smart way of capitalizing on, a half-dead genre. Like, okay, disco's on its way out, but it's easy.
Mm-hmm.
And Beatles probably were having slight resurgence at that point because of Lennon's death. So, okay, throw in your own song that you have the rights to, and then pay for the rights to have sounds alike produce a peppy, dance-worthy short play record. Like, it's smart if you can capitalize on it. And if the version of the story is true that there were, that this mix was already circulating, and then he just produced it legally to make money off of it, well, that is honestly just really good business sense.
I always imagined, or not always, because obviously I just only thought about this for 1 week, but now I imagine Michel Ali, the guy who we think came up with this idea and almost the same track listing, when he heard the song hit it big, like 2 years after, I picture him sort of like drowning in Labatt Blue, the official beer of Quebec. Don't sleep on that beer, kids. It's a great beer.
Is that the official beer of Quebec?
I don't know, but
I did not know that.
It may not be. The last few times I've gone to Quebec, there's just a lot of Labatt. I remember that as a kid, that when you go to the beer store, because like back in Ontario, back in the day, if you wanted beer, there's only one place you go, and it was called the beer store. And pretty much it was either a Molson product or a Labatt product.
Also true.
Yeah, like now it's sort of different. Than the last few times I went to Quebec, I kept picking up these giant tall boys that were like 1.5 liter and then 10.2 alcohol or whatever.
Oh, are you talking about like Le Fin du Monde and Modiste?
No. Actual Labatt Blue.
Ones? What?
No, actual Labatt Blue, not Le Fin du Monde.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's crazy. I mean, in Canada, we're pretty proud of our beer, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm so grateful that we have good beer now, and not just the Molson and Labatt product, which I believe Labatt may have been bought by Molson years ago, but I'm not positive.
I think so.
But in BC, I think Kokanee is our BC beer, just because it's brewed in southern BC.
Well, I'll blow your mind here. You know what the number one selling beer is in Canada?
What?
Bud Light.
Oh, I believe it. And that's terrible.
Yeah, so segueing from beer, and I'm the master of segues, from beer to Stars on 45. Yeah, this was a hit everywhere. Australia, Austria, France, Denmark, Spain, Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, Sweden. Didn't go number 1 in the UK. Only went number 2 there. And it probably went more number 1s. This is just what I can find. But that was... did I say Switzerland?
I don't think you did. So
okay, Switzerland, yeah. Actually, I meant to say Switzerland, not Sweden. Sweden went to only number 7. But that was pretty much it, for them. They put out Medley 2, which is another thing of the Beatles. Only went to number 67 in the U.S. But then they just kept churning it out. They did a George Harrison medley, only released in Australia. More a medley on ABBA. That one actually did okay, number 2 in the UK. Didn't chart in the US, but if you're going to do a medley of anyone after the Beatles, actually, wouldn't it be ABBA first now?
Well, especially because, ABBA would make sense. Didn't they do a Stevie Wonder one as well that did okay?
Yeah, in 82. So they did that. But by that time, a bunch of other people were doing the same thing. So apparently, I say apparently because it's... the music history says it started a medley craze, but I don't remember any of these other medleys.
I remember none of them, but then we already established that I was just a wee babe suckling on my mother's teeth. So I certainly don't remember Stars on Frankie, which was Frank Sinatra. Or
that sounds awful.
What else was there? Oh, there was the Andrews Sisters remix at one point.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I didn't even want to look for it. It's like, I don't even know how you do that. Maybe they did well.
I don't know.
I didn't really want to know any more than what I've already learned. I know they did one for the Rolling Stones, and I'm sure that didn't work well. Well, maybe it did. I don't know.
The Rolling Stones one, no, that didn't seem to work. I think the Stevie Wonder one was, and after the ABBA one, the Stevie Wonder one was the only one that actually got some traction.
It did, yeah. It did pretty good from what I could see.
Churning them out until, 2007 with the Andrews Sisters.
Yeah, and at that point, it didn't cost them much.
There was something that didn't make it anywhere. But, yeah, let's just keep producing crap on top of crap and see if anybody likes it. The problem is, anybody can do beat matching and do music compilations these days. I mean, we all have way better technology in our pockets with our phones. Like, I can set my Spotify access to meld songs into each other pretty much. So you add some basic technology, and nobody wants to hear your compilations anymore.
No.
Because we can all make our own with songs we want to hear and pretend that we're club DJs.
Do you think, and this is sort of what I really wanted to sort of ask more than, because it sort of like boggles my mind. I mean, I think we've established how this became a hit, but is this song influential? DJs now have, I mean, they're completely reinvented from what a DJ is in 1981 to what one is now. Now a DJ can sell an arena, which is mind-blowing. Just, I think it was Bill Burr who said, like...
Tiesto!
Yeah. Well, Tiesto, that's another Dutch guy, too. So go figure.
It is.
Junkie XL.
Also, not a whole lot of talent, and just using some pretty basic... Anthem Trance is its own genre of... let's get a bunch of people high and play the same beats over and over and just slow them down. And then go again. Yeah. Anyway. That's a totally different show.
Yeah. Well, I think it was like, Bill Burr, I believe, said, I'm going to go pay money to go watch somebody play his computer? Like, I don't think so.
I personally do actually have a lot of love for EDM. But there's a big difference between music creators and music replayers, I guess, would be the thing. And there's a lot of crap out there, and unfortunately most of the mainstream stuff is crap, in my opinion. But that being said, I'm torn with how influential that came out well. I'm torn with how influential this recording is, because on the one hand, it really does seem like it was the first compilation that really made it mainstream. But if they were playing this shit in clubs already, and they were, and any half-decent club DJ would have been mixing and remixing and doing exactly this, I honestly think that this was just capitalizing on the times and on what was going on to get to number one. And I don't think it had any real influence long-term on what people were playing or doing.
No, I agree with you. I can't even say that it influenced sampling, because that was happening in the urban centers with the New York City-based DJs well before that. And even on the charts,
Disco was sampling in the early 70s already.
Right. And I always keep thinking of like one of the first samples that I'm really aware of. Sugar Hill Gang sampling and Rapper's Delight, Chic's Good Times, which was only like two years before that. So it's not like this influences sampling. It's like, here is something that was massively successful, but I think it just influenced other people to churn out crap.
Yeah. And this isn't even really sampling, because a good DJ that's sampling takes a hook, takes a riff, they take part of that song and incorporate it into what they're doing. This is literally just splicing and beat matching, which every single wedding and party DJ these days can do with their eyes shut, because their software does it for them. But even if you've got some vinyl and you're actually working on turntables, I suck at trying to DJ. I've, played around on some friends' decks a few times. I can beat match. It's not that hard, and that's all they're really doing. And adding in a crappy little intro and outro of this is disco, and I think you're absolutely right. It just encouraged other people to put out crap.
Yeah, it didn't push the needle. There's no progression into this. It's not like we can take this and say, because of this, we got this.
Nope.
We can
there's
say,
none of that. Because of this, we got more of this.
More of this.
That nobody really wanted to hear.
Yeah, nobody wanted it. It was just the perfect thing for that perfect time for people who weren't quite ready to let disco go. And I remember the 9-year-old me thought this was fun. Because I'd never heard anything like that before. Just one boom, 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 boom. I knew who the Beatles were. But I mean, if you're appealing to a 9-year-old and his mom who's like, oh, I remember the Beatles, that's not cool.
Well, and the funny thing is, when I looked up the song and I looked at it on YouTube and the comments and stuff, they were all people that were like, oh my God, I remember listening to this as a kid. Or
yes.
I remember when I was in elementary school and I got to go to the music station and this is what I played all the time. It was little kids commenting on it, probably because their bored housewife moms bought the record and played it.
Or in my case, it was just on the radio all the time.
And it's silly. What? You just
or
turn
no,
the radio on.
Yeah, because it was on the radio. Like that was we listened to this Hamilton station when I was growing up in Burlington, and like it was like the pop station, and I remember that. It was, and I think I saw the same. I went to the same thing you did. I was looking at the YouTube comments, and I noticed the same pattern. All people probably my age who remember it, and then not very many comments at all. Which meant not many people were actually watching, searching this out. If it wasn't for this show, I wouldn't be searching that out.
No, I wouldn't have even thought about it, except for the fact that we decided we would pick something from the year I was born, and then this came up as a fun option.
And it was.
So
it was. I think this is a perfect song to sort of debut with, because we're going to be going through a cornucopia of cheese.
It really displays the overall, just how much the environment and and, greed influences what we listen to. And I think if we keep exploring this in different eras, we'll find a lot more of that. A lot of what plays to people's base instinct and what makes money.
Yeah, because that's the sort of interesting thing too. One thing that I always sort of want to remember when we're doing this, it's not necessarily what people think might make money at the time, or just even what a genre is. Pop is just short for popular. So this was the number one song encompassing everything, regardless of genre.
Yep. Which is crazy, because it is literally just snippets of music that was already popular.
So then Andrea, have I done this well enough that I can have you back for a second song?
I think we could do that.
Okay. So I'd like to challenge for my year, my birth year, 1972. And yes, I'm old. I'm very old. I'm going to be 50, but I have all my hair and most of it's still the original color. And from the neck up, I didn't do too bad. The neck down is a different story. The waist down is worse. Too much? Was it? Okay, yeah, probably.
Hey, I mean, this is why we're a podcast, because nobody's judging on appearance.
I already pretty much established that I'm a hard 4. That might have multiple meanings, and that wasn't really going there with that, but okay. But do we go with a good song from 72 or a bad one? I've got depending on what you decide, I've got the perfect one for a good one and the perfect one for a bad one. Up to you.
I don't know. I think maybe we should go with a good one, because we kind of just went with a not great one.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I've got the one for you, because I already knew which one it was going to be, whether you picked good or bad.
Okay.
All right.
Are you going to tell me what it is?
I'm going to tell you what it is. Next week, we will look at the song that went to number 1 the day after I was born. Brandy, You're a Fine Girl, Looking Glass.
Oh, I like it.
Yes. And even relevant today from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, good call. I like it.
And with that, we've concluded week 1 of How the Hell Did This Get to Number 1?